Right, let's set up the revenue part so we can also check the actual number we sold for. So every archived item will be calculated into the total sum here, right? Like this one over here. So that's the next one we're going to be creating and checking. So scroll down where you have completed orders, and we're just going to reuse this here. And instead of having, let's keep this. Let's create a div in here and just remove the completed orders. And I'm going to set up an ID to style this later. Total revenue, right? So this is the one we want. And then I'm going to create a paragraph. And inside the paragraph, I'm going to add an ID as well. This will make sense once I get to the CSS part, of course, hopefully. Revenue. Text like this. Awesome. So inside my paragraph, I am going to just create one called total revenue. So this should print out the actual money's worth, right? And I'm going to create a span in here so we can have a little class to it. Not actually class to it. Let's create an ID instead. And let's call this total revenue. Total, the text total. These are awesome naming, right? And over here we're going to do a interpolation and call it revenue total with a capital T. So this is going to be the HTML setup for it. It's not going to print out everything now. It's probably going to, well, if we check the console, it's going to give us an error because we haven't set up anything yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to the computed part and we have some stuff here. We actually have this total down here. We don't really need that, so we can actually just delete those from our orders. We don't use those. Goes from here to here, and let's go bye-bye. So you can clean up your code. I haven't cleaned up a lot of code that we created, so if you want to, go through that, of course. We're going to create revenue total. And in here, we are going to do a calculations like we did with the previous one we already tried. So we're going to create a variable called revenue total. No, well, let's not call it total, let's call it income like this. And this is set to 0 from scratch, right? That will make sense. So we're going to use the this keyword and we're going to grab the order items. And then we're going to do a for each for each of the items. There we go. And in here we'll have we'll just take theirs. You can change it if you want to, but they just set up an element. So for each element that's in the item, we're going to be using this specific variable here. Awesome. We use FireStore notation and in here. Great. So let's do an if statement in here and create the structure so that's ready. And then inside the if, we're going to check if the element is archived. There we go. If that is true, because we don't want it to do a calculation if it's not over at the left part of the revenue, right? We don't want it to do a calculation if it's still being placed over here. That makes no sense. So let's not do that. So inside this, whoops, I did something with my screen. There we go. And inside our if statement, we're going to grab the element again, and we're going to grab inside the order lines because we have multiple things, right? We can have more than one order, so we need to go through each of those as well. So great. And let's call this I don't know. Let's just call it LM. I totally lost my track with the naming here. So that's just the name. And in this one here, so now we have those put in. We're going to start doing a calculation and put them into our revenue income up here. So revenue income is like this, and then we do the plus equals. So add them together and continue to do that for each time there is a new addition. So we do elim dot, and then we do the price, and we do this with a not that one, with a asterisk or multiplication sign. And then elim dot quantity. So basically what we've done in the previous previous calculations we already done in the system. Now we also want to do a return. So return the revenue income in this one. So let's click save. Let's go out here, and now we have a total price for the revenue in our system. Awesome.